Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So Zach Bryan has the #1 song in the country right now.
Yeah.
He is a country star, but
Crossing over.
the last couple of days, it's been more about rap, as in rap sheet.
Well done. You know what? I'm not going to protest that one too much.
So
yes.
He's been arrested once and he's been handcuffed twice.
Yeah, all over some driving incidents while he was in Oklahoma.
We should say this is a bizarre story on so
Very
many
bizarre.
levels.
So he, as Harvey said, handcuffed twice. The first incident, and by the way, we broke the story yesterday that he was arrested. What he was arrested for was obstruction. We didn't know at the time when we broke the story exactly what had happened. And Zach offered it up.
We're going to take you to Oklahoma right now, because that's where this all started. So Zach is in Oklahoma, and the first incident,
He's a couple days ago.
Driving along, and he says, this is kind of the, I only had 2 beers officer. He says, I was going like 4 or 5 miles over the speed limit. And a cop sees me, and he stops me.
He pulls him over, and this is what happened.
I drive by this cop. I was going like 4 or 5 over. He pulls me over. He comes to my window. First thing he asks for is license, registration, and my address. And I told him, I said, hey man, I don't really feel comfortable giving you my address. I'm a musician and I'm not comfortable with it. So he says, if you don't give me your address, I'm gonna have to take you to jail. And I'm like, man, I'm not gonna give you my address. So he tells me to step out of the vehicle. He puts handcuffs on me, and I'm like, man, what the hell is going on? I ended up like abiding by what he was saying. We kept talking. He finally took my handcuffs off. He gave me a warning because I wasn't going too fast or anything, and then he let me go because I just started respecting him and being cordial.
There's a point I want to make about what he just said. I'm going to defer it because it's going to become relevant for the second stop.
So now, cut to yesterday, Zach says he wakes up and decides that he wants to go see his Philadelphia Eagles, his favorite team, play
now remember,
against the Patriots.
And he's in Oklahoma, and the game's being played in Boston.
But he's going to drive. So he calls his security and says, all right, we're driving to Foxborough. I'm going to the game this weekend. And he drives in one car, and he has a bodyguard who's driving in another car behind him. He says he looks in the rearview mirror and realizes, uh-oh, my bodyguard just got pulled over. So the cop pulls over his bodyguard.
And Zach comes back.
Loops around and says he parks his car behind them, behind the police officer and his bodyguard, and gets out of his car and is watching and waiting for this stop to end.
Like 15 minutes go by, and he's clearly getting frustrated.
Here's how it ends up with him in cuffs.
The cop comes up to me and he's like, sir, get back in your vehicle. And I'm like, I'm not the one getting pulled over. Please, he's like, get back in your vehicle or I'm gonna have to take you to jail. And like a dumbass, I said, take me to jail? What do you mean? I get too lippy with him. He brings me over to his car. And I just didn't help my situation at all. I felt like a child. It was ridiculous. It was immature. So he gets me in these cuffs, man, and they're tight, and he puts me in his front seat. And we're just all going back and forth. And he says, hey, man, I'm going to tell you this, and if you, don't interrupt me. And I was like, well, after you're done, I'm going to say my piece. He's like, okay. He started talking. I interrupted him, naturally, because I was just angry. So he said, I'm going to take you to jail, and he took me to jail. And I was in jail for a few hours. When I got there, it kind of lightened up because I just kind of cooled off a little bit.
So he ends up getting booked for obstruction.
So I want to go back to the first incident. So what he's not saying about the second incident is, did he just get out of the car and stand there? And did the cop come up and say, get in your car?
Or was he hollering at the cop?
Or was he hollering saying, why are you, you're harassing this guy 50 minutes? We don't know yet because the police report at the time we're doing this has not yet been released. The reason I want to go back to that first incident is the cop had said to him, I need your address. Most people would say, I know I have to give it because I got stopped.
Right.
And he is kind of being defiant, saying, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm a musician.
Right.
And so...
Which is another way of saying, I'm a celebrity, I'm not giving you...
Kind of.
It's kind of, I'm a celebrity, I'm not giving you my address.
And it makes you think, why did that cop in the second incident say, get in your car? Was he just standing there, or was he doing
You're
something?
saying you think he was, because he was lippy the first time, he was probably
And he said
pissed
he was
and
lippy the second time. He said
Right.
he interrupted the cop and knew he shouldn't have.
Yeah, look, that's the missing piece here, and we're hearing from Zach Bryan, but there's going to potentially be a body cam footage, maybe a dash cam that catches this interaction a little bit more. And when someone is pulled over, you're allowed to observe it as a bystander, but you're not allowed to obstruct the investigation. They've started an investigation with someone else, and a lot of officers get jittery that their safety is imperiled if someone else is agitated behind them, so they'll often say, get in your car. We'll have to see exactly what Zach was doing that prompted the officer to say, get in your car while I do this.
It's doubtful he was just standing there.
It sounds doubtful to me. I mean, at least he might have been yelling like, hey, what the hell's taking so long, or something along those lines that prompted the officer to sort of jump in.
We can't just take Zach Bryan's word for it, but when I heard his description of this, and remember, he didn't have to post this video at all, so he clearly wanted to get out in front of it. And it seems strange to me that he would make up a story when he knows that there's
he didn't make up. He just left out. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I don't think he made it up. I think he might have just put a favorable spin on the interaction, and maybe we'll see more of what objectively happened from a dash cam or a body cam. That's all.
It seems strange to me that he would omit or spin the story when he knows full well, one, police report's going to come out. Two, there likely is body cam. So it doesn't suit him. If he's getting out in front of it, don't tell something that is going to be completely refuted when the video comes out, because that's going to be even worse for you.
Right.
And I do believe that he is trying to make this go away, right? He feels he was in the wrong. He wants to own up to it and move on.
Okay. That may be true.
And I think he got screwed.
Well,
the guy got screwed based on what he said.
I think what he said is probably all true. It's what he left out.
I get it.
That we don't know.
I know. And I'm saying I don't think he's lying by omission. I may be proven wrong.
So you think he was just standing there and the cop said, get in the car, and then said, what's the obstruction then?
If
what's
he did something else, why not say that? Because it may not. The lawyer told him don't admit that?
If I were his publicist, I would say, look, if the police are going to come out with their narrative, you blunt it first and apologize and say I was a dumbass, which he said.
But don't give the detail of it because you're going to end up in court. And
that's
you don't
right.
Wanna...
Exactly.
All right. Maybe.
I'm Michael Jenkins in D.C. Here's what I think. Yeah, he overreacted, but also I'm from a small town in Texas, and there is a possibility. 2 arrests in 24 hours, same town, Bonita, Oklahoma, that these cops love nothing more than to pull over a big name and make a name for themselves. And also, what's really funny is that he has a #1 hit called Something in the Orange. And had this charge been more stringent or harsher, he would have been something in the orange. So all the way around, it's a bizarre story.
It is a bizarre story. Just one final thing to kind of close the loop here. Good mugshot. I mean, it is a good mugshot. Don't you think? As mugshots go?
As mugshots go.
I think it's a good one.
Pretty good.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Yes. Moving on now to the much anticipated Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion sequel. It definitely plays like a sequel. They've been teasing the song Bongos all week with the artwork and Cardi sending out CDs to fans.
Cool video.
The video and song finally dropped last night, and fans are reacting much the way they did when their song came out a few years ago. That was a huge hit. But it is kind of in the same vein.
Yeah, the lyrics are just as filthy, which I don't know if that's.
I don't think they're as filthy. That's
they're
debatable.
pretty up there. But look, their first hit together was like iconic, and this one is good and it's catchy too. And the colors of this music video are absolutely beautiful. Lots of great response online. But by the way, I think you guys will like this. Aside from how hot they look, there's a scene. Let me see if it comes up where Meg Thee Stallion is on the pool dancing. That house in the background is a historic house. I just realized it's where The Godfather was filmed, and William Randolph Hearst used to live there with Marion Davis. So,
is this San Luis Obispo?
No, it's in Beverly Hills. So very famous house that they're like dancing in front of. I was like, wow, all right.
God, all they needed was a horse head to complete it.
There it is.
The horse head?
Yep, there it is.
No,
right there.
there's the shot of the house.
Hey, it's DJ Richie Valentino calling from Long Island, New York. Listen, I think that we're in a beautiful, beautiful place in hip-hop right now to see Cardi B collaborating with Meg Thee Stallion. The video was amazing. I think that it's really good to see Cardi kind of come she's really known for her collaborations. She had a lot of great collaborations this year. This video did really well. I think that it would have been dope to see maybe if the director put styrofoam microphones in there that they're probably throwing at her.
I agree with Charlie. I love the colors in this. I mean, it's a really cool video. Okay, we got to take a break.
All right, when we come back, Kim Kardashian making a plea to President Biden. Plea for him to stop what's going on in Armenia. She says she doesn't want to grow up having to teach her children about another genocide in Armenia, and says that the president can take steps right now to make sure it doesn't happen. Kim Kardashian is reaching out to President Biden by way of an op-ed that she wrote for Rolling Stone magazine, where she calls out President Biden and saying that he and other leaders here in the U.S. need to do more to prevent another genocide in Armenia. And she lays out why she feels that's exactly what is happening in Armenia right now because of this, God, it's more than decades, it's maybe even centuries old, battle between Armenia and Azerbaijan. They're battling over land. It's a land dispute at the core of it.
But what's happening is they're choking the supply chain for food, medical supplies, and other things that Armenia desperately needs.
And she believes they're doing it. Azerbaijan is doing it intentionally. So this is partly what she said to President Biden in this op-ed. As citizens, we are appealing to leaders such as President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, and their colleagues to take a stand immediately. They must pressure Azerbaijan to open the corridor without preconditions. Now is the time for true leadership. We need for those who have a meaningful role in these affairs to immediately demand that the Lashin corridor is opened to stop another genocide.
So here's the problem, I think, with this, which is that the war in Ukraine has been kind of a divisive issue in America. I think probably the majority of people still support it, but there's a huge contingent that doesn't. And the problem is because we're putting so many resources into Ukraine right now, that I think there's probably political peril in any administration that takes on another cause that's going to further create the divisiveness and might even compromise Ukraine, support with Ukraine.
It doesn't sound like she's talking about any military
involvement.
No,
I understand that.
You know, diplomatic involvement.
There's kind of an isolationist move in this country now. There's a little bit of an isolationist move in this country. And what happens is if they, and honestly, I hope Kim prevails on this. Right. But the more the administration gets involved in other areas, the more others are going to make a case against supporting places like Ukraine and elsewhere because they're saying we're doing too much elsewhere and not here.
I know what you're saying.
Tough.
And I know what you're saying that those voices will be there. But when you're talking about genocide and there's
I agree with
evidence that this is happening, like I don't know how you don't act. And by the way, Kim has. It is interesting that she chose to write this op-ed and reach out to President Biden this way. There were people just a little over a week ago who were protesting outside her gated community, saying that we want you to get more involved in fighting against this genocide. So she clearly, I think, heard those voices and is reacting to that.
Yeah, and unlike Ukraine, I mean, she's not asking for billions of dollars to be sent there or anything. She's just saying, hey, stop foreign aid for Azerbaijan and boycott any international events that may be happening there in the country too. So I don't know if maybe because it seems like a lesser scale or a lesser ask, maybe both things can happen at once. But it's interesting, like you guys said, how all those people were outside of her house, and now she is taking the action.
And in fairness to Kim, by the way, she has done a lot to really put a spotlight on.
Didn't she make it?
She went to Armenia.
Made a big donation a few years ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the number was, but it was a large number.
Hi, my name is John. I'm from California, and I'm very happy Kim has consistently used her platform throughout the years, and she's passionate about Armenian issues. I definitely understand what Harvey and Charles are talking about with isolationism and whatnot, but when you look at just her emotions surrounding everything regarding this, it's hard to not see it from her perspective. So as long as it doesn't lead to a slippery slope of we could get into a lot of details on what could go wrong as a result of pursuing interventionism. But I got to stand with Kim because I understand she's really deeply passionate about her ancestry and all the issues surrounding it. So I agree with her.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. We're gonna go to Rome.
International?
Well, not Rome. We're gonna go to
Vatican City. Exactly. Give him the props.
I just gave him.
Because Sylvester Stallone made a visit to Vatican City with his family and actually was granted an audience with His Holiness. And met with Pope Francis.
And the interaction is fabulous.
It's kind of hilarious. Who do you think is the more starstruck one here? This was Stallone meeting the Pope.
So good to meet you. This is my wife.
Good morning, Holy Father.
My daughters. Three.
Three Mary.
Thank you.
I'm honored.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored too.
Ma noi siamo cresciuti con I vostri film.
We grew up with your films.
Wow.
Ready? We box.
I love the Pope is sparring with Sylvester Stallone, and he's a fan. I love this.
Where do you think this has to rank among the honors that Stallone has received in his career, given the fact that he grew up Catholic too? I mean, that has to be pretty cool to have the Pope come up to you and say, hey, we grew up on your films. That has to be at the top.
It probably is. I mean, it's just the idea. Well,
Yeah.
And also, the only thing that he might not like is when the Pope, who is got to be, what, in his mid-80s?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that. I wanted to look up.
I grew up on your films.
Yeah. Growing up means different things for different people.
But just the idea, the Pope seemed starstruck by him.
It was absolutely.
That was awesome.
Pretty cool.
Awesome.
Hey, what is up? My name is Nick LaRocco, representing Dirt Sheet Radio out of the Chicagoland area. I think, like you guys said, is a battle of who's more starstruck than the other. And I think the Pope is just happy that it was Stallone he was shadowboxing with and not Mike Tyson.
No, there you go. Although, I don't know, he might be interested in meeting Mike Tyson, too. You never know.
What, the Pope?
Why not?
That would be interesting.
Okay,
yeah, why not?
We got to take a break.
All right. When we come back, if you're going to New York City and you're not staying in a hotel, good luck finding an Airbnb. The city has declared war on Airbnb, essentially, and it is shut down all short-term rentals.
We're going to call shenanigans on what's behind this.
On why they're doing it?
Mm-hmm.
The city has an explanation, but someone's not buying it. Damon's going to be here, Damon John, to help us follow the money. There is a new sheriff in town in New York City, actually, new mayor. And they have decided to crack down on something in New York City. We're not talking about crime, not talking about parking violations. We're talking about
Airbnbs?
Airbnb. There are essentially no short-term Airbnb rentals allowed in New York City, as this new law just took effect this week. And there are all sorts of rules if you even want to rent it out long-term. So what is long-term and what's short-term?
And how are they doing that with private residences is what I want to understand.
Anything under
30 days.
30 days is short-term. So good luck finding an Airbnb in New York. Basically, if you find one, they're probably operating off the grid.
And they're doing this because of the housing shortage. They want people.
That's what the city says.
Let's bring Damon in because
yes, there's so much money to follow here for Airbnb, for tourists, for the city.
And for what might happen in other cities.
Yeah, indeed, because there are other cities who are considering this. So joining us is Damon John. Help us follow the money like we do every week. Damon, how you doing, man?
I am great. How are you?
I'm a little bent out of shape here because I don't understand this.
Already?
I mean, I get the fact that there is a housing shortage and everything else, but how are you saying to some private property owner, somebody who owns an apartment in New York City, that here's what you can do with your apartment. You can do this, but you can't do this. It just seems too invasive to me.
I agree with you. I think that listen, I have a lot of respect for Mayor Adams, but I think it's wrong. I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today if I wasn't able to rent out rooms in my home when I was starting FUBU, so I can, pay the mortgage so that I can, start my business. And isn't that the American dream, to own something? Own some equity in something and be able to, whether you pull out financing from it or rent it out or whatever the case is. This is really something that the big hotels and big corporations are pushing on people. And at this time, The hotels are going up approximately anywhere from 25 to 40% in New York City. And so it's also squeezing families and people that want to come visit the city. So I think this is absolutely obnoxious.
So let me just ask you a question. This is my cynical side. That is it possible the hotels are behind this move? Because obviously Airbnb cuts into hotel business. So I know that the argument is because there's a housing shortage, you want people to rent for more than 30 days. But is it possible that's a subterfuge for hotels saying we got to get rid of these Airbnbs?
I don't know. Let me think about that. 300%. 3,000%. I forgot. We're following the money. Right? So I think 3,000% that's the matter. And that because they have the strength to come in and listen, it's corporations, organizations, and it's saying, listen, we want to invest in New York City. We want to build more hotels, but your Airbnb situation is scaring us. But the people that are going into these hotels, to these Airbnbs, they probably can't afford some of the luxury hotels. Now, there are a lot of hotels that have short stays. I mean, we all seen it, right? $30, $40, $60. And I think those organizations are really having a hard time because they're being splintered because of Airbnb. Do I think this is a total aspect of we want to crush a little guy and a little girl? No, but I think it's a politician saying, well, they only have violence over at those little Airbnbs or complaints over there. No, you go out. I live in New York. I used to live in New York, honestly. You go outside of those small hotels, there's always a problem there. Heavy drug use in a lot of those small hotels. So a lot of people who have these Airbnbs, they're also manning and saying, no, you can't come in and do those type of things. So I think it's really a problematic situation. I think it's really the hotel squeezing the everyday person who starts off at Airbnb and maybe they'll raise up and start flipping houses and go up and up and up. But this is a problem.
Damon, do you think there'll be people who basically operate as pirate Airbnbs? I mean, it's only a problem if you get caught, and it's a big city. What are the chances you get caught? I know the fines can run anywhere from $1,000 to $7,500, but maybe that's the risk you take, and that's the price of doing business. If you really need to.
They got so many problems in New York. The police aren't going to start looking for Airbnb.
Right.
I think that's a good point, right? Listen, we have to man our communities and our cities, but we looked over several topics here to talk about. You have in New York and various places, you have them not stopping shoplifters, not putting people into jail for for a certain type of crimes. You have homeless and defecating on the streets. You have a lot of other issues. Is this really going to be an issue that you want to tackle where somebody at least invested in a home and they're having somebody stay there? You have drug dens. All the bad places are still going to exist. The drug dens don't go, hi, city, I'm going to register my drug den. So, I think there's other issues they should be solving, but this is a squeeze on the everyday person by the large corporations along with the politicians.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
Well, thanks, Damon. Thanks for helping us follow the money. This is going to become a big issue in New York. And by the first time they crack down on someone, you'll hear about it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have an answer to it, but we just told people this is how you think. Follow the money.
Here's what they're going to do. There are going to be people bootlegging this and saying, look, you need to check in between 2 and 5 in the morning when it's dark. Bring a suitcase in then.
And make sure you have a hoodie and a face mask.
Right.
The bad people always get around. It's going to be the good people that suffer.
Right.
Okay, Damon.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate
Damon.
it. See you next week. Okay. We're going to take a break.
All right. When we come back, we just got the details on Zach Bryan's arrest. From the police side, we've heard Zach's side. Was he telling the whole truth? I'll just say this. He left out a lot, according to the police. Welcome back to TMZ Live.
I am not one to say I told you so. I told you so.
Yeah, you are definitely one. And in this case, he can say so. So Zach Bryan, if you missed the top of the show, country star was arrested. We broke the story that he was arrested in Oklahoma and arrested for obstruction. We now have the police report and, most importantly, I think, the dash cam video that shows elements of this.
And we should say that, remember what he said when we started the show. He was saying, basically, he just said, when are you going to finish this? And all of a sudden he gets arrested and he's contrite kind of with the police officer. Well, now there's body cam video.
Right. So just to reset this here, the white vehicle you're seeing is his bodyguard who had been pulled over by police. Zach pulls up in his black pickup truck, and he's
right by the cop.
He's like, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? And the cop says, Lay, you got to get back in your truck. So here's how it plays out and why he ends up in handcuffs, and then says a lot more to the police officer than he ever said in his apology video.
You need to get back in your truck because you're interfering with officer discharge of duties right now. Either get back in your truck or go to jail. I don't care which. I'll go to jail. I'm done. All right. Just all right, put your hand right. For the second time it's happened in 3 days.
This is why people do not like police officers. I would get back in my truck right now if you let me out of these handcuffs. If you don't, it's going to be a mistake, sir. I promise. I know every high pole, I know every sheriff in Tulsa.
Okay.
I let 40 of them go to my BFK show.
You know,
I know you don't give a but like this is just insane.
I didn't say that.
Second time it's happened in 3 days. These officers are out of hand, truly.
Well, okay, first of all, I know every
cop.
Every cop in Tulsa.
40 of them went to my show.
Concert. It's essentially saying, and he said, you're making a big mistake if you take me to jail.
And to say, this is why people hate cops.
That's a big line for country fans.
Yeah, I mean, look, he mentioned in his mea culpa, as you said, that he got lippy, but now we're seeing the words that he used, and he made a bad situation get much, much worse for himself. He's clearly very agitated sitting in that seat, and when he says he knows 40 cops, the only way you can interpret that, or 40 sheriffs in Tulsa, is that he was trying to get out of this by saying, I know people higher
in
than
high
you,
places,
so.
yeah.
And let's not forget that in the police report, we now see that he also
knew
said
the mayor.
He would call the mayor. His father gets on the phone and says he was going to call the governor.
So, I mean, this was pulling out all the stops. And you know, when we talked about this originally, Charles, can you, when you look at that video, you know, we thought, okay, maybe he's just standing away. Right. Why is the cop making him get back in the car? Because he's right there.
Pulled up right next to the car. I was defending Zach Bryan, saying there's no reason to arrest this guy because he made it sound like he was very passively standing, you know, away from them during this traffic stop. He's right on top of the cop. I get it.
So
I completely get it now, seeing it and hearing what the police side of this.
Let's talk about the PR side for a second, because I think that's really interesting. It's like when you come out with something like that, and his
video apology.
With a video apology.
Right.
And you know that it's not going to ring true. It's like, what a bad idea.
Right, and you're right. There's probably some publicist or someone who said, you know what, you got to get out there and do this apology because you got to be, you're pro-law enforcement.
And by the way, but maybe the publicist probably did it based on what he said, obviously.
That's also true.
Right.
Yeah.
And in some sense, I think it did blunt the impact of this. This was going to come out regardless, but what he said was, I got a little lippy and I'm very sorry. He fell on his sword. You remember the apology?
But it did the opposite.
That's a bad move if you know that, if you're not telling the full truth and then the full truth comes out, you've made it worse.
You made it way worse.
Right, and that's why when you hear people say that you should not say anything, this was a case where, based on what we now know with this dash cam video and the police report, Zach Bryan would have been way better saying absolutely nothing, waiting until it came out, and then apologizing.
That's right.
But because now he's caught in a lie.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Zach Ross, calling from Porterville, California. And, you know, it'll be different. It was like a couple miles over the speed limit, but he was way over the speed limit.
Well, no, that was his bodyguard. That's his bodyguard that was over the speed limit.
The bodyguard was over the speed limit.
His problem was interfering with the police officer. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. So his bodyguard was in the wrong. But also another thing, too, is being a country singer, I think you got to keep your fan base in mind with some of your public actions, too, because
no kidding.
Being a country singer, I think his fan base is going to give him a hard time over this.
No kidding. Okay, we got to move on.
Yes, to Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner's divorce. And someone who is really
just reeling.
Is absolutely reeling over this. That would be the person who married them, the Elvis who married them. You may not remember, but when they got married, they did a Vegas wedding, and they had an Elvis officiant.
Which looked really fun, by the way.
It was. It was good time way back in 2019. Better times for them, obviously. But we spoke to the Elvis impersonator who married them. He said he would never, ever, ever have imagined this. Remember, this guy has probably seen how many countless weddings, right?
And this was a particularly fun wedding. I remember when we did this story.
And he
thought it was all going to last forever, right?
Here's why he was blindsided by the news.
I understand that, unfortunately, they are not married anymore. I'm just heartbroken and sad and just distraught over this whole thing. They seemed like they was going to make it. They seemed like a couple in love and very playful with each other. And yeah, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that it's over, so to speak. But maybe I don't know how hard he hung in there like he should have hung in there. You know, you got to go through all that stuff. But it was a pretty short marriage, if you ask me. I don't know if he gave it his all, but hey, it ain't my business. I don't know. I'm just saying from the outside looking in, he could have tried a little harder, man. It's only a couple of years here, you know.
Oh my God! Could have tried a couple more years. It was 4 years. I mean, you know, some people think that's a lot. Obviously, Elvis doesn't.
But what person officiating a wedding is going to think, that's going to end in divorce?
Yeah.
Nobody. Well, maybe some people.
Sometimes they might.
Sometimes you go.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to take a break.
All right, when we come back, the U.S. Open, right in the middle of Coco Gauff's big match last night, stopped, came to an absolute standstill for 45 minutes because of these protesters. They're protesting climate change and went to absolute extremes. Wait until you hear what one of the protesters did. Is this effective? Does this actually help the cause of fighting against climate change? We're going to talk to a professor who's actually studied this, how effective it is. She'll be here to weigh in. The U.S. Open, you know, people show up expecting to see tennis. Well, they got more than they bargained for last night, and they were not happy about it. During Coco Gauff's match, which she eventually won, there were some protesters who disrupted the match for 45 minutes. They stopped down the match. They had to call in police. They had to call in medical paramedics. They had to call in security.
And this was all over climate change.
Yes. So a group was there protesting climate change. They were shouting out different things. The biggest disruption was the fact that one of the protesters actually glued himself to the ground. That's why they had to bring in paramedics to be able to free him without.
And so it raises an issue. Did they help the cause, hurt the cause, gain support, lose support? And this has kind of been an age-old issue.
We talk about it a lot with like PETA.
With PETA, but this one was such a huge venue that what did it do? What did it do for the cause? That's the question.
And by the way, they know that as well, that it's a huge venue. They did it during Coco Gauff, who is the tennis player that everybody's looking at. So was it effective? Well, there's someone who's actually is writing a book about this very topic as it relates to climate change and protests. She is a sociology professor at American University. Professor Dana Fisher is joining us right now. Professor Fisher, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you for having me.
So give us your take on what this did for the climate protest movement.
Other than extending the match also.
What did it do?
It certainly extended the match, right? Gave everybody a little time to recover before they played more. Beyond that, with regard to the movement, I mean, the movement is much broader than what we call the radical flank, which is people who are engaging in civil disobedience, like gluing themselves at events and throwing food, yelling, interrupting, stopping traffic, etc. But the importance of this kind of tactic is that it's getting us all talking about the climate crisis, and it's getting a lot of people thinking about it. Now, it is divisive. It is polarizing. This kind of a tactic is not, something that's popular at all, but it does help to raise awareness about the issue, which is exactly what these activists were hoping to do.
Well, that makes it sound like you're saying it succeeded then.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
I'm on TMZ Live for the first time ever because it succeeded.
That's a fair point.
Even Coco Gauff said she was asked about it after the match and said that she can't really be mad at them. I mean, she's acknowledging, I can't be mad at them. Climate change is a thing. And so she didn't want to, I think, maybe she was just walking a line, but she didn't want to say they were out of line. But when you glue yourself to the ground, now you're taking it to a point where, aside from risking harming yourself, now you're just making everybody's lives miserable there who have paid money to do something else. I feel like you're pissing off a lot of people, and that's maybe going against what you want.
Absolutely, it is disrupting people's lives as usual. It's disrupting their opportunity to experience sport and to watch a sport. The argument in counter to that is that the world is on fire. We have this huge hurricane, unprecedented, hurling towards the East Coast right now. It's over 100 degrees here in DC today. There is a climate crisis and it's worsening. And the science has been telling us that for a long time. And these activists have decided to put themselves on the line to get attention for it and disrupt everybody's lives. Now, just note, and I just want to highlight here, these activists chose to do something that didn't harm anybody. And while it did make everybody's lives a little bit less pleasant for 45 minutes, they ended up getting to see the game. The point here really for these folks whom I'm calling the shockers in my new book is that they are actually trying to shock and disrupt everybody's lives and get media attention so that we start talking about climate change. And I just want to say that Coco's response to this is textbook radical flank, which is, I support the issue. I'm not sure I support the tactic. And some people who feel that way, research shows, are actually going to go out and look for a more moderate group to support, which is part of how that worked during the Vietnam War, which is how it worked during the civil rights period, and which is how it's going to work during, this climate movement as well.
Yeah. Huh. All right. It's really fascinating. I can't wait for your book.
I wonder what the time, my point was, you could make your point in 15 minutes, and I would walk away from the match remembering that happened. You can't
unglue yourself once you glue yourself. Somebody.
Right.
Well, let me say this. Okay, so Charlie, did you know that there was a big disruption that happened at the Open here in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago?
I did not know there was a tennis match in D.C.
So we have an Open here in D.C. and activists from Climate Defiance, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure if it was Climate Defiance, so I don't want to say that. But there were activists here. They did a banner drop. They disrupted, they yelled the exact same thing that was done at the US Open last night, but they did not glue themselves, and so they were dismissed within 15 minutes, and nobody heard about it.
Huh. Well, I think...
Interesting.
But I think that's a case of venue, because that's a much smaller match that doesn't get the attention.
But it's an interesting point.
Yeah.
That the bigger the disruption, the more the attention.
Exactly, and that is why we're going to see an escalation in tactic.
All right.
And I can tell you, when Climate Week happens in New York City in a week and a half, keep your eyes peeled. I expect we'll be seeing a lot more of this.
When does your book come out? I want to read this.
So my book comes out in early 2024. It's called Saving Ourselves from Climate Shocks to Climate Action. And it talks all about this expanding radical flank. And I would be happy to send you a copy of the proofs if you'd like to see it.
I really want to read this book. I find this fascinating. It's the most important issue right now, right?
Absolutely agree with you.
It certainly feels like it if you're outside anywhere in this country.
Professor, thanks for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it. Really interesting. Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right. When we come back, Danny Masterson, on the heels of his 30 years to life sentence for rape, he has now begun his time behind bars, and there are already concerns about his mental state. We'll tell you what police are doing while he's behind bars. That 70s show star Danny Masterson is behind bars and will be for a long, long time. If you did not hear the news, he was sentenced yesterday for a rape case, 2 rapes actually, and got 30 years to life. And there are already concerns about his mental state as he has begun serving his time. He was remanded immediately in court, and now police are concerned.
They are watching him.
This is a suicide watch.
They are watching him very, very closely. And they're not using that word, but they're talking about mental health. They're seeing if there's any signs of distress behind bars. They don't want to happen to him what we've seen happen to other high-profile celebrities. And so they are essentially watching him 24/7.
Yeah, and in addition to watching him, they're also plotting an appeal. His lawyer, Sean Hawley, came out and said that they are absolutely going to appeal this decision. They said that it was wrongly decided. And so, which obviously gives, in addition to pursuing all of his rights, it also gives, hopefully, a convicted person some hope that they may not end up serving the time.
And by the way, the appeal is kind of interesting because remember, he was in. This was the second trial. The first trial, there was a hung jury, but it was hung in favor of acquittal. And so what happened in the second trial, the same judge presided over the second trial. That judge let in a lot of evidence that she didn't let in the first trial. And that's going to be the centerpiece, I think, of this appeal. And it's going to be interesting to see what the appeals court says about that.
Why were all those things admitted the second time around?
And not the first.
Right.
Nathan Britton in Virginia. Yeah, this is a crazy story, and the appeal sounds like it's going to be super long-winded and interesting. And you know that this is unfortunate for the victims because, you know, it's something they just want to be able to put behind them and you know, not have to deal with this anymore and kind of get closure. So you just hope that it can go smoothly, everything can go through. And if he is, in fact, guilty and he gets found guilty again, you know, he's going to serve his time and they can get closure and he's going to have to deal with the, you know, consequences of his actions.
Yep, we will see. Yeah. So this appeal is going to be interesting. What else do you guys want to talk about?
This is Ray from LA. I'm commenting on Zach Bryan, who got into this scuffle with the police. I just want to say, Zach, don't worry about it. As a country music lover, this makes for a good song. The hit's going to be like, I was riding down the road, got those coppers on my tail. They say I'm going too fast, but I was just moving like a snail. And he can just kind of go from there with it, you know?
Hey, we'll forward that to him.
Yeah, send it to him. I mean, yeah, put a little guitar behind that.
Work on it a little, though.
Yeah.
One more.
Hi, this is Laura from Michigan. My topic was the Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion song. I love it. The music, the hats, the beats. This is a great, fresh dembow and funk sound, which is kind of a new direction for Cardi B. And I find it really interesting, and I can't wait to see what she does with it in the future.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the next one is. She's pretty much gotten most of the body parts.
Yeah, there's nothing left to explore.
Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, the big reveal, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's baby boy. We finally know the name. It does sort of stick with a theme that they've been going with, but I don't know if anyone would have picked this name. You'll hear it when we come back. Well, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky have a full house of R's.
They do. There's like the Kardashians.
Yeah, they obviously, we have Rihanna, A$AP, whose real name is Rakim, and then their first child was RZA. So everyone was waiting to find out the new baby boy, what his name is, and it does stick with the tradition. His name is Riot. Riot, and the middle name is interesting, is Rose. Riot Rose Mayers.
I love the name Riot. I think it is really cool.
RZA and Riot.
I love Riot.
That's a nice pairing there, RZA and Riot.
Rose, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Rose, I'm not sure.
But nobody ever really uses their middle name. I mean, do we need to bring yours up?
My middle name is Robert. I could be in Rihanna's family.
Your middle name was Pierponto.
No, my parents were. It was between Harvey and that.
Oh, it was going to be Pierponto or Harvey.
So I actually won.
So you won. Good for you.
Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday.